Okay, so this is the game that we created. We call it Facepong. And so, because basically, I mean, it's more similar to Breakout or something than Pong. You can probably tell if you've played Breakout or a similar game. But the original idea was we wanted to take a simple concept, turn it, change it up a little bit, and make it just some new innovation, some new way of playing it. So the original idea was to take an iPad or some other tablet and use the accelerometer and everything else within it and move it in a three-dimensional space so that you can actually move it up and down and around for the board, since your tablet's the paddle. Then with that idea, we were talking about various things we could do to add on to that, like tilting the paddle to change the direction you hit the ball at, maybe hitting it, things like that, to give it extra speed. Various ideas like that, and ended up not being able to get the accelerometer to work well enough to do the actual up and down movements. We had some of that kind of working, but it was really weird and wasn't the best. So we just took that out. So right now we run it on an iPad or iPhone or whatever else. Currently we just have tilting, so you can tilt it and it'll change where the pad's at just in the world. And that works okay. It's not what we're going for, but otherwise for the web version, well, the non-tablet version, you can just move the mouse to move the paddle throughout the screen here. So some of what we use to do this, like I said earlier, it's all HTML5 based. So we're using a 3D library called 3.js, and that allowed us to do a lot of what we wanted to here. Originally we were doing it with just a 2D canvas, and performance was a lot worse, as you might expect, because it's trying to render all these 3D objects in a 2D space. But at least with Chrome and maybe some other browsers, they support WebGL, so we could actually tell it to use a 3D canvas instead. So the performance is a lot better in here. And we could also up the quality of the ball so it's more spherical, various things like that. Some of the issues we had before we did the WebGL was because of how the sides are rendered. There was no z-index calculations there, so we would take the overall side of it and try to guess if it was in front of or behind the ball. So you'd have times where the ball would be along the edge and then disappear, it's going into the wall even though it didn't. But thankfully, using WebGL just prevents all of those issues. That was nice. Plus with WebGL, the performance is a lot better, so you can do stuff like this. And it runs pretty nice.
Well, you didn't tell me about the
secret features. but yeah, then for the physics, I know that 3.js does some collision detection automatically, at least determining, but no physics, I think, with it. But we're using a library on top of it called microphysics that made it a lot easier. Meant we didn't have to worry about much of it. We do run into some issues where balls hit edges and go at odd angles and get stuck in the back, things like that. But it did mean we don't have to worry about that at all. We can just, when we're creating a block, we can say, here's a new block in the physics world. The paddle is just a physics block. Stuff like that. That covers most everything.
How many? There was 3 of you guys on the team.
Yeah.
How would you say you kind of divided up the once you got the concept down?
So Bryce and I we're 2 developers at Huddle, and Andrew is a designer there. So he played with some various things like lighting to see if we could do things like making the ball glow as it went back and forth. He also did various other things, mainly for design, like game design for it. But otherwise, some of the initial stuff, Bryce and I both worked on that to try to get some of the rendering in place, get the actual hallway and the world rendering initially. And then he spent quite a while trying to get the accelerometer to work, everything with that. I ended up throwing in most of the physics and getting some of the blocks in the back rendering and disappearing when they are collide with anything. But yeah, initially Bryce and I sat side by side to try to get a lot of it, the basics in place, and then we split up and took a few different tasks to try to get it done in the 12 hours.
Cool. Anybody else have any questions about technical or otherwise?
So you said it runs on the iPad?
Yeah.
And is it WebGL on the iPad?
I don't believe so. I think it's just 2D. I don't think it supports a 3D canvas.
So is there a lot of Like, do you have two code bases then for the?
No, it's all the same. It can just detect if
Okay.
it supports WebGL. If it doesn't, it falls back. But all of the calls into 3.js, it's all the same from there, so we don't have to worry about it. But some things like the quality of the sphere, things like that, if we do know it's WebGL, then we can make that higher as opposed to just a 2D.
What's your plans with it?
Well, we were talking about like various things we could easily add, or maybe not so easy, like just random things like achievements, like, oh, you actually managed to hit the ball with your paddle.
Yes, that was where I was struggling.
But for now, we'll probably end up just leaving it as is. I love doing the Games++. It was a great thing, and I'll probably do it again if they do it again sometime.
Well, it's in the works if we're doing something probably up here. Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, as is, we'll probably just leave it how it is. And it was a great experiment. And there is more work you can do with it, but it's not really something that. If we were going to try to create a game on our own, it probably wouldn't be quite like this. And so investing more time in something like this just doesn't really make sense for us. It was a great learning experience, but from there, we've learned a lot from it. And I don't know if there's that much more.
But the process, not the product.
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else?
Yeah, have you guys ever done 3JS before?
No, all of this stuff, we hadn't done any HTML5 work. We've never used 3.js. Bryce and I, most of the stuff we do at Huddle is more back-end stuff. And so I do some HTML and JavaScript, but I tend to stay away from it. So if you look at the JavaScript that we have on here, it's not the prettiest stuff, but it works. But yeah, so a lot of this was very new to us.
Excellent. All right. Thanks, man.